until given permission to do so by council staff. Please note that the meeting will be audio recorded. Please switch off mobile phones or turn them to silent so everyone checks. Please note that toilet and hand washing facilities are in the foyer area. Members of the public are reminded that this is an official council meeting and the item before us will be debated according to the usual council rules for the council meetings to which the public are admitted. Members of the public are not permitted to speak at this meeting unless they have previously registered to speak with the Democratic Services. In this way, everyone present will be able to hear the debate and councillors will be able to make an informed decision. Can I please also remind you to be respectful of all the attending meeting, including other members of the public, councillors and officers. Members of the public, while you are of course entitled to film or take photography and photographs during this meeting, can I please emphasise to you that this should be done without disruption to the meeting and can only be done from a designated area in the public seating. Can I please therefore ask you to raise your hand clearly in the air if you wish to take photographs or filming this evening? Jill White. And she's in the front, so that's not a problem. Okay. A minute to go. That's fast. Members, it's now 7:30. Members, there is a need to use microphones during the meeting. When I invite you to speak, please wait until there is a microphone in front of you. Let's start again. Please wait until there is a microphone in front of you before speaking, as microphones are needed for the hearing loop and for the audio recording. Now, if anyone of the members can't hear anyone, can you please indicate? These are all switched on and ready for you to speak and will be unmuted by officers for you. Please make sure that the microphone is directly in front of your mouth before speaking. Members, voting will be done on a show of hands in line with the Constitution. I will ask for a show of hands for and then against recommendations. I will also ask for a show of hands for those wishing to abstain from voting. I would move from the chair that I want to move an item 7 to be item 3. Or can I have that as the seconder? Thank you. Do members agree, please? So we move that forward up the.
That's 7 Blenheim Lane.
It's London Road.
London Road.
Yeah. They move it up to number 3. Yeah, please. So all the original ones will be.
Chairman, if I may, I'm just getting the agenda up to see where this is. So you're moving that to. So that will be heard after which item?
66 Holbridge Road.
After 60. So we're doing 31
It
Barley
will be heard
Road.
After 66 Holbridge Road. That's all I'm.
Yeah, no, 31 Barley Road, 66 Ferry Road, because they were. We couldn't get them through the last meeting, so they've got to come first. And the next one will be London Road. Are all members agreed? Thank you. Agenda items 1 and 2. Apologies for absence. We've had one apology for Leslie Butcher and Councillor Eileen Gadsden is substitute. Have we got any other ones, please?
So you've got apologies for Councillor.
Knight. We've got Councillor Stanley and Councillor Knight, and Councillor James Newport will be standing in for Councillor Stanley, and Councillor Hoy will be substituting for Councillor Knight. Okay. Is that it? Any Jack Woolman? Not Jack Woolman. Right, okay. Non-members attending. We have Councillor Sperring, Councillor Rowe, Councillor Wootton, Councillor McPherson. Oh, sorry, Councillor Daniel Felton, sorry. I've done Cheryl Ward. And Councillor Wilson, thank you. Members, minutes of the meeting held on 24th of January 2023. Are these agreed, members?
Agreed.
Thank you. And I can sign them, yes? Thank you. Agenda 5, to receive declarations of interest. I will start. I've got a non-pecuniary interest because I'm a member of the Conservative Club in London Road. Councillor Constable?
I'm also a member of the Conservative Club in London Road,
So it's a non-pecuniary.
non-pecuniary.
Councillor Gadsden? I can't hear. Can we?
Can you hear me? I also have a non-pecuniary interest.
For that item.
That I did.
Thank you. Councillor Foster?
I also have a non-pecuniary interest in the Conservative Club application.
Thank you. Councillor Milne?
I also have a non-pecuniary interest as a member of the Conservative Club.
Thank you. Councillor Mason? Mrs Mason?
Thank you. I'm going to be different. I haven't got an interest in the Conservative Club. However, I have what could be perceived as having an indirect interest in item 22 to 24 Southend Road, Hockley. And in the interest of transparency, I will leave after speaking so that I'm not influencing the debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mrs Mason. Anyone else has got any interests? No. Thank you very much, members. I've already moved the motion, Rule 9C, so I've had a seconder, and we've done voting on that, and everyone's agreed. Thank you. Right, just moved the agenda around a bit, I'm sorry. Agenda item 6. It's 22/01114 full 31 Barling Road, Wakering. Katie Fowler will present the officer's report. Over to you, Katie, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So the application site is located on the south side of Barling Road and is currently occupied by an unlawful dwelling. So on the screen we can see the aerial photograph, and this is the site with the unlawful dwelling in question. The site is within the Metropolitan Greenbelt, but due to the site's previous siting within a rural settlement, the dwellings along Barling Road are far larger than is expected for a typical Greenbelt area. So on this second photo, we can just see the application site with the unlawful dwelling at present. And on this third photo, we have an aerial shot of before the building was demolished and rebuilt, and so this was the dwelling that stood previously. Although members will have seen the previous dwelling in plan form, the photos on screen should help members to picture the dwelling that was demolished and the previous appearance of the site. So I'll just go through these. So this is the rear elevation. And then we have a kind of bird's eye view of that. The rebuild of this dwelling was granted in 2020. Members may be familiar with the site due to an identical application appearing on a weekly list prior to Christmas. The application was referred to committee, however, due to an administration error, a decision was incorrectly issued. To provide some further context, the dwelling that stands on the site was refused planning permission in 2021. Whilst planning permission was granted for the rebuild of the dwelling identical to that which was demolished, it was this proposal that was refused which was built out. A subsequent appeal decision was lodged, and this appeal was dismissed in early 2022, requiring the dwelling to be altered back to the dwelling which had been demolished on site. The application subject to this committee therefore must be considered in light of this appeal decision and the demolished dwelling which benefits from planning permission to be rebuilt like for like. And just to provide, I appreciate it's quite confusing with the amount of different applications we've had on this site. So the pictures that are on the screen now, the blue measurements are those taken from the plan of the refused application, and the yellow taken from what's on site, because they do differ slightly. So in my report, you'll see on the table there's measurements of the demolished, the on-site, the refused, and the proposed, just because there are differentiations between them all. So of particular, I'll just take us to this plan here. You can see that the kind of hatching on the top right here was not included on the plans, but was built out to be habitable space. And then you can see from here, from this plan, that it is slightly larger on site. So now what is proposed is the alteration of the on-site dwelling to create a dwelling that is reflective in mass and scale of the demolished and approved dwelling. The red line on the plan depicts the outline of the demolished dwelling. So it probably is a bit faint here, but you can see the chimney in particular. So that's not a chimney that exists, that is the outline of the previous dwelling. And then it goes up here and then along slightly. So to achieve this, the proposed dwelling has been reduced in height and the single-storey extensions removed. Consideration must therefore be had as to whether these alterations would result in a dwelling that would have a comparable impact to the demolished dwelling upon the greenbelt. I'll just zoom out. Paragraph 149D of the NPPF considers proposals for replacement buildings which are in the same use and not materially larger than the one it replaces to be appropriate development within the greenbelt. Policy DM21 similarly permits the construction of replacement dwellings where the replacement would not be over 25% larger in floor space than the original building. Case law has established that to consider whether something is materially larger, this could be looked at in terms of floor space or built volume, but ultimately it should be of a similar scale. Looking firstly at floor space, we have to primarily consider the original dwelling. The officer report sets out that the proposed dwelling would be greater than 25% of the original footprint. However, this is also the case for the demolished dwelling, but which was granted planning permission for a like-for-like replacement in 2020. And so the plans on the screen, the right-hand ones depict the floor space of the dwelling which was demolished and granted planning permission in 2020. And then the left-hand ones are now what is proposed. Therefore, the proposed dwelling can be considered against national policy which requires the replacement dwelling to not be materially larger than the building in which it replaces. So in this case, this left-hand building would be replacing this right-hand building. I would draw attention to the table on page 9.9 of the officer's report. Just give you a sec to go to that. Page 9.9. Oh, this might be the previous one, 6.9, sorry. Yeah. So this table depicts the demolished/approved dwelling, the refused, the on-site and the proposed, and then sets out the floor space across the ground floor, first floor, second floor, and then the total floor space of those. So the table demonstrates that the floor space of the proposed dwelling is comparable to that of the demolished across the ground floor and first floor. Although the second floor space of the demolished dwelling is not entirely known, the pictures shown earlier demonstrate an extensive roof space that would have certainly been able to accommodate some of the accommodation. It is therefore considered that a floor space of some sort would have been able to have been accommodated within the second floor. Of importance is also the appeal decision on site. The inspector was clear in his decision that the second floor accommodation of the dwelling on site does add to the dwelling being materially larger than the one it replaces. However, looking at the bottom row of the table, it shows that across 2.5 stories, the floor space can be seen cumulatively in greater comparison to that of the demolished dwelling than that of the dwelling subject to the appeal. Whilst floor space is the first test, case law has established that the impact of a building may still be significant depending on the massing and bulk of the replacement building. I'd now draw your attention, members, to the table, which I guess will be on 6.14 rather than 9.14. So the table again depicts the differencing between the approved, demolished, refused, on-site and proposed, and then the different heights and widths and depths of the application. So the plans on screen, hopefully the colourings are clear. I've tried to make them a little bit clearer, but the blue shade is the dwelling which was demolished, and then you should be able to see just a tinge of orange or red colour behind, which is the proposed dwelling. So if I just go through these, it should become a little bit clearer when they're slightly different. So here again, you can see the blue colour, which comes up here and then out, and then the orange. So just to reiterate, the blue is the demolished and approved dwelling, and then the orange-red colour is the proposed dwelling. It is evidence from the plans on the screen and the table that the proposed dwelling would be comparable to that which was demolished. Although the proposed dwelling would have a greater volume in some respects, it would have less of a sprawl than the demolished dwelling. The additional bulk and mass into the roof is considered to result in a greater condensed dwelling and smaller footprint than that of the demolished dwelling, which would have a greater sprawl. Although the bulk and mass of the roof would have a greater impact than the demolished dwelling, this would be offset by the lesser impact of the ground floor and sprawl of the demolished dwelling. And the last one I'll turn you to in the officer report is on page 6.15, paragraph 3.35, towards the bottom of the page. So members will see an extract from the inspector's decision relating to the dwelling on site. The issue that the inspector takes with the dwelling on site is that the additional storey results in the building being taller and materially larger as a result of accommodating this. Whilst the proposed dwelling would utilise the loft space, the ridge height has been significantly reduced. Overall, where the bulk and mass of the dwelling would be greater in some respects to that of the demolished dwelling, it would be offset by having less of an impact in other respects. Whereas in comparison, the on-site dwelling is materially larger in all aspects. It is considered that the proposed dwelling would successfully overcome the objections which had been raised by the inspector within the appeal decision. And just to go through the images on the screen, the red dwelling is the proposed dwelling, and the blue in the background here is the dwelling that's on site and which was refused previously. So, and just to show the ground floors to see the extensions which have been removed, the blue have been removed, and the orangey reddy colour is what's proposed. In terms of the other material considerations, it has been assessed that the scale of the proposed dwelling would sit comfortably within the application site and the surrounding area. It is not considered that the proposed dwelling would dominate or overbear the street scene given its reduced height. The dwelling would also not be considered to impact upon neighbouring dwellings in this regard. For the most part, the proposed fenestration would not overlook neighbouring dwellings, with the exception of the first floor flank window. However, as this window would serve an ensuite, it would be reasonable to require this window to be obscure glazed and non-opening. The development would be compliant with the policy requirements of garden size, refuse and waste storage, technical housing standards, parking and trees. Members may recall that the addendum of the previous committee recommended an additional condition which restricted the residential garden to only the area hatched and restricted the erection of permitted development outbuildings. The addendum also amended condition 2 to include a revised site plan that showed a complete depiction of the land owned by the applicant. So these conditions were worded as follows. They are on screen, but I appreciate they might be a bit hard to read, so I'll just read them out briefly. So condition 2 would be amended to say the development hereby permitted shall be carried out in complete accordance with the following approved plans. It lists all the plans and then just amends the location plan, which is 100A instead of 100. The second condition, which is the additional condition, is worded to say the area shown hatched on drawing number 100A shall be the only area used as residential garden at any time. Notwithstanding the provisions of Article 3, Schedule 2, Part 1, Class E of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order 2015, including any order revoking or re-enacting that order with or without modification, no outbuildings shall be erected or otherwise provided on any part of the site, either shown hatched or the area beyond that. And just to show this plan, so the red is the application site, just go through that here. And then the blue is the site owned by the applicant, and I've just hatched this bit here so that only this part of the site will be used as residential garden, but there would be no permitted development outbuildings on any part of the site. This is due to the applicant owning the land to the south and the potential harm to the greenbelt that would result were outbuildings erected on this area, hatched or outlined in blue to the south. The application is recommended for approval, Chairman, subject to the conditions set out in the officer report and addendum to the previous committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no public speakers. We have Councillor Mrs McPherson. You have 5 minutes, Councillor McPherson. I'll let you know when you've done 4. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Hopefully, as Chairman, and having had issues in your own ward, you will use your discretion on the 5-minute rule, if that's possible, please. Members, I will not have time to read through each point. I quote, so please have your pens ready to take note when I quote pages and reference numbers. 31 Barling Road was previously known as Orchard House. You will understand why shortly. Built in the late 1940s, plans only date from 1967 and show, in 1967, extension to the dining room, 2 bathrooms, cloakroom and new staircase added. In 1984, conservatory added to the rear. In 1986, a 2-storey side extension was added. All these were approved through the proper process, followed planning law. Please, members, note how the original footprint had already been extended. Several applications have come forward since 2017, all refused up to 2020. Now, taking you forward to 2020, in April 2020, during lockdown, I was alerted by residents that Orchard House had been demolished. Not only demolished, all the trees and greenery also taken. So not only were my residents trapped in their houses following lockdown rules, but had to endure living opposite a construction site. As an illegal construction site, there were no operating hours, no conditions. They worked weekends and bank holidays, including New Year's Day. Officers were alerted at that time that the house had been demolished and works were being commenced. On 1st of February, I was asked by residents, was there any news? I had presumed following alerting officers an enforcement notice had already been served, but alas, no. I followed this up again with officers on the 8th of March 2021 and was told an enforcement notice was yet to be served in relation to the work carried out. I have here the email. Yet, page 6.3, 2.5 clearly says an enforcement notice was served in June 2021. This is more than a year from when our enforcement team were originally notified that the building was being demolished. Could you pop the slides up now, please, Katie? Thank you. So, in here you've got 3 pictures. The top picture shows the building as it was. The picture to the right, when it was being demolished in 2020, and below to the left is the picture now. I know Katie said slightly larger, but please look for yourself. For example, there were no rooms in the original building in the roof. Page 6.3, 2.2, can I draw your attention to that, members? And also on the same page, 2.3. Could you pop up slide 2, please? Katie, thanks. Here you have some before and after photos. Now, I disagree wholeheartedly with officers' comments when they say the bulk and mass is clearly the same. It is not. The new build is substantially larger. You also now know why it was called Orchard House. I can't see a tree there at all. And when we have residents supporting one tree staying in a road and yet a whole orchard is demolished without planning permission, it does perhaps make a lot of people feel Heartbroken to see that. Please look at these photos side by side. Ask yourself the impact on the green belt. It will say in your papers, it isn't substantial. For further information, 31 Barling Road, previously known as Orchard House, it had a historic orchard, let alone the impact on the wildlife that were demolished along the side of the house. It's really quite heartbreaking. Next slide, please, Katie. Now, again, we were told that all the houses there are large. The existing street scene is in front of you. It's made up of a ribbon of large detached dwellings with substantial curtilage. That's page 6.4, 3.2 members. I can see the building there, smack in the middle, it sticks out like a sore thumb. But then that's down to you, members, to decide if you think that that is in keeping with the rest of the street scene or not.
Councillor Person, you've done 4 minutes.
Thank you. Next slide, please, Katie. Now, this slide shows both sides of the road. Unfortunately, you can't zoom in to show it, but opposite are mainly semi-detached bungalows. And again, there you go, right in the middle with that semicircle in the front with no trees is 31 Barling Road. Materially larger is key with this application, members. All I can ask committee members is for you to please go through this application with a fine-tooth comb. It appears a done deal, even though we went to enforcement and won. And make any recommendations to stop further developments, bearing in mind the history, the blatant disregard for planning, not to mention the impact this has had on the environment. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Councillor FD, you're the other councillor for the ward. Would you wish to say anything?
No, it's fine.
Thank you. Right, members, I'm open. Is there any other visiting ward councillors? Do they wish to speak on this, please? No indication. Right, members, I'll take it to the committee. Has anyone got any observations they would like to speak to? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been looking at this one with interest, and
Can you speak to the mic,
I'm
please? Sorry.
trying to, it reverberates in my ears. I agree with Councillor McPherson. I've looked at this planning application, I've looked at the inspector's report, which I've got in front of me, and what is proposed is very different to what was knocked down, and also what is proposed in this application is different, or it hasn't really taken into account what the inspector said, as far as I'm concerned. It still is materially larger. I think the report is trying to include floor space which shouldn't be, which the inspector did not include. There is no second floor on the original property, and I don't think we should count that. The inspector certainly didn't. And on that basis, it is the building is material larger. When you look at the street scene, as been shown by the pictures, it's not comparable to the rest of the street. It is very different, and I think ultimately, which is also agreed by the inspector, it was not appropriate development for the Greenbelt. I'm not sure if anyone else is going to speak on this subject, but I'm proposing that we refuse the application on the three grounds I've just stated, which I'll repeat, which are inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. It is not in keeping with the street scene, and this building, as we are looking at on these plans here, is still materially larger than the original build.
So Councillor Hoy, are you putting a motion forward?
Yes, that's what I said. I thought I said that.
No, yeah, right. Have you a seconder, please?
I have no idea.
No, you haven't.
Possibly not.
That's right. Is any other Councillor FD? Sorry.
Thank you, Katie. Just have a couple of clarifications, please. Is there planning, what's the planning for 2020 on there?
As in what was passed?
What was passed. So is it, what we're looking at now, is that substantially bigger than what was passed in 2020?
So if I just come to this comparison again, I think it's worth clarifying that the aerial photographs at the moment obviously show what's on site, and that isn't what's proposed here, and they do differ. So the blue line, I've lost the thing, here we go. The blue building is what was existing on the site, and then the orange outline is what's proposed now. So obviously from the front, it's not too dissimilar. And then if I go to the side elevation is where you can see the differences. So you can see that obviously at some points the orange is greater than the blue, but then at other points the blue is greater than the orange. So it's officers' opinion that although in some places there may be a greater volume of floor space, there is actually less floor space in others, and cumulatively that impact is balanced out.
And also with the 2020, not eyesight, application, there's no conditions, whereas this one's got conditions on it.
Yeah, so this one would have stricter control.
And the 2020 application is in force now, so if we didn't do this, they could still build the 2020 application, which is different from what is there now. And this application is smaller than what is there now, just for clarification, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Can you, we can't hear you. Can you make... Carry on. No, can't hear you.
Try that.
That's
better.
better.
Thank you. Oh, my train of thought's gone. This does look to me very much like overdevelopment. I wouldn't go along with an absolute refusal, but I would like to propose perhaps that this matter be deferred and a site visit be arranged so that we could have a look at this at some stage, please. I don't know if I have a seconder for that.
So we've got another motion on that you want to defer this.
I'd like to defer this at the moment and have a site visit for members to look at this
And we've got
in
a seconder,
detail.
Councillor Foster. Members, are you all in? Can you, for a deferment, in agreement for a deferment, can you please raise your hands? Against, members? Someone's got a phone going. That's a fine for you for the charity box. And any abstentions? Councillor Hoy. So that has been carried. So it's been carried, members, for a deferment, 7, and a site visit. So officers could arrange a site visit, please. Against, 4, abstain, 1. Thank you, members. Right, members, we'll go on to item...
Can I just make a request?
Yep.
I've got every sympathy with the ward councillor's opinion, but what I would like to know is a couple of questions that I haven't had the opportunity to ask, and I'd like them to be covered
We can't
in
do
the
it now.
I'd like them to be covered in the report when it comes back to the committee.
Yeah, but we can't do that now because we've gone that. We voted. It's going to be deferred.
Yes, I know it's being deferred. I'm asking for these 2 points to be covered.
You could give them. Can you write them in? I've just been signalled that if you can write them into our...
Yeah, okay, I will do.
That will be fine.
Thank
Agree
you.
with that? Thank you. Items referred from the weekly list. This item could not be heard at the last meeting. So it's 66 Ferry Road, Holbridge, 22/00928, full. Okay, so has everyone got... Katie, you...
Chairman, can you use the microphone?
Yeah, I will do. I'm just trying to find out who's going to speak on this, actually. Not Trace.
So we're not allowed to speak on deferments.
Thank you. Mike, can you speak, please?
Thank you, Chairman. This application is on the eastern side of Ferry Road, just opposite the junction with Abbey Road. The site is part of a small group of dwellings you'll see that are unusually, or in the context of this street, set back further than we usually see. They're a small group, as I say, with large front gardens. If we could see the photographs briefly, please, and just scroll gently through those. There we see the outbuilding at the back of the site, which is used as a gymnasium and fitness suite, but it's also got a single cutting chair, if you like, hairdresser's salon in it, that was approved in September 2017 by the council. And the business was at that time, the application, operating from the applicant's hallway and kitchen of his house. And he made an application to transfer that activity that was in the dwelling to this outbuilding that he had. And the council granted it. There were a number of conditions, because obviously there's a problem that we're no doubt going to come on to, about where you get commercial uses in residential properties. And there's extremes. You get people quietly working on a drawing board perhaps, or doing accountancy on a laptop or something, and you wouldn't know they were there. And you get the other extreme of like car repairs and noisy activities, paint spraying, etc. Well, uses like this are somewhere in the middle, and it's for the council to judge whether they're acceptable in a residential area or if they're not. And a device to help that acceptance is the use of planning conditions. Now, there's two that are issued tonight. One that is set out at paragraph 19 on page 715 of your report, is that the decision in September 17 was personal to the applicant. So it could only be for that applicant as long as he was residing at that address. And then condition 4, which was a limit on the hours. There were separate conditions that prevented use on Saturdays, Sundays, bank and public holidays, and a 5th condition that allowed for only one workstation. With the applicant, before I get to that, in the previous application, the applicant advised that there would be only one member of staff, basically himself, with appointments between 9 and 6, 2 days a week, and between 12 midday and 8 p.m. 1 day a week, with the occasional Saturday working. That's what he applied for. And from what I've just said, you've probably gleaned that's not the shape of the consent that he got. We limited him in hours till Monday to Friday between 9 and 6. So the applicant has advised that he also, at that time, attended appointments in people's homes or elsewhere. So it's a mix at that time of working at home and off-site. The council gave him a consent so he's able to work from home Monday to Friday, if he wished. Gave him that scope, okay? So the conditions are contrary to those that were put forward back in 17. That's now history. But the council felt that in granting a consent, those conditions were necessary to address policy DM33 that you have, which is a criteria-based assessment when these applications come up from time to time. And part 3 of that was to safeguard the amenity of adjoining occupiers, so we didn't end up with a commercial use that would be ill-fitting or disruptive to the residential adjoining homes. And in this case, the noise and activity such as it is to do with customers and maybe staff or whatever, comings and goings at the end of appointments. There isn't any known machinery or anything like we get with other uses that causes decibels or anything like that. It's the general mitigation through conditions of the activity associated with the coming and going and of the use proposed, basically to make it fit with the tolerances of the residential environment. So the council previously found against the late evening opening. And if we jump to Plan 3, please, this approved at that time the layout of the unit. And you'll see it's predominantly down to the applicant's gymnasium and domestic use. The small corner that we see here is that given over to the single station for the hairdressing activity. Now, what you've got, before you tonight is the applicant has come back to us now seeking to vary the personal condition, condition 2. That's one of the 2 conditions he's seeking to vary. This would allow, as hopefully clear from the report, to allow for a training of a work experience student who has anxiety but would specifically benefit from shadowing alongside the applicant rather than be constrained or disadvantaged perhaps in a larger, busier salon. So it's rather tailored to her needs. It would be very suitable for that. And the applicant stresses that the student would not be cutting or styling, but would be observing and supporting in a way of clearing up, making refreshments, doing some hair washes perhaps, activity like that that would allow her to shadow the main stylist and learn that skill. The applicant stresses that there wouldn't be any increase in clients or activity to what's already permitted. The second part of the application is to change the hours of business. You'll see from the report that the applicant's circumstances have slightly changed. He's now have a young family and needing to balance his work around the parenting needs, things like doing school runs. And you'll see from the representations from people who have written in that they also find that the late hours proposed up until 8 p.m, I think I've lost myself now, I think it's 2 nights a week. Yes, Tuesdays and Thursday evenings until 8 p.m. That suits their lifestyle as well. Now, in an analysis, there is always difficulty, as I think I'm making clear, in trying to balance commercial uses alongside residential. And inevitably, there's a form of compromise. The broadly national policy encourages small businesses to grow from the home environment so that as they develop, they get clientele, a reputation, their business grows, they outgrow the home and need premises. And from that, they create jobs. And that's hopefully a success story. The difficulty, though, as I said, is accommodating such a use in a residential setting. We have an objection from the immediately adjoining occupier, but you'll see from the agenda there are other letters of support, as I've explained, supporting the use and the flexibility proposed. Therefore, it's for this committee to come to a view as to the acceptance of that. Now, officers, you'll see, are recommending refusal because we're concerned of the framing of this difficulty with the existing conditions. We've previously rejected the late hour opening that was initially suggested back in 2017 to be 1 night per week, but is now proposed to be 2. And also, we can envisage that the taking on of a supporting sort of trainee, that can inevitably lead to perhaps some support for the main stylist in covering work. We probably are well aware of trainees we've taken with ourselves. When they start, they don't know much, so they can do very little, but over the course of their time with you, they get better skills, and therefore where would that lead? So we're concerned about that, and therefore, despite the letters of support and that you see before you, officers are recommending refusal for the reason that's set out in the report. Now, if members agree that recommendation, the applicant would still be able to continue under the consent that he has. So we're not refusing or recommending you refuse if you can't do anything. We're saying that we're recommending to you that you refuse the proposed changes to the constraints that he would work under. The net effect of a refusal is that he would continue under the consent that he has. Hopefully that's clear, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have one speaker, public speaker, and I will apologise if I say your name wrong. Mr. Margiotti? Sorry. Will you go to the mic? You've got 5 minutes, and again, I'll let you know when you've done 4 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, everyone. After reading the Planning Officer's report, I contacted Talent at RDC. She suggested that a condition can be put in place. Councillor Adrian Eves kindly suggested to limit any workers, in addition to business owner, to a recognised trainee only now and in the future. A recognised trainee would mean an unqualified person who is currently studying towards an NVQ Level 1 or Level 2 in hairdressing. This will keep the business use low-key and incidental to enjoyment of the dwelling house. Unfortunately, my neighbours at 68 and myself got off on the wrong foot from the first day I moved into my home. I can honestly say I have done my best to be kind and respectful to them, but it's just not good enough. As regards to the 2 additional hours till 8 p.m. on a Tuesday and Thursday, Mr. Kilburn stipulates that this may disrupt the quiet time that might be reasonably expected. Noise from clients' vehicles. Firstly, Ferry Road is the busiest road in Holbridge, with 2 parades of shops just 20 yards up the road and buses that go up and down till midnight that actually rattle our houses. Unfortunately, if it's not clients visiting me, it's me driving out in my car, which in my opinion is a lot more disruptive, especially in winter months when my diesel car could be sat on the drive warming up, defrosting windows, whilst I'm gathering tools, products and equipment in the salon due to the nature of working from people's homes. Hair services take a while longer, resulting with me arriving home close to midnight, which is an example of an event that occurred just last week for a client who lives just round the corner. Just some food for thought for members of the board. Would this be any different to a friend visiting my house once or twice a week? What if I had friends visiting my home and or outbuilding every evening for social gatherings? I strongly believe that any social gatherings would be far more disruptive than a client and myself sitting in the salon, having a chat and a coffee whilst I do their hair. In paragraph 25, Mr. Kilburn refers to noisy equipment. My loudest tool in the salon is a Dyson hairdryer that runs at a maximum of 74 decibels, which is as loud as your dishwasher at home. My neighbours at 68 Ferry Road are actually 40 metres away from the salon, so impossible to hear anything. I've tested the Dyson hairdryer and left it running on full power. I went outside and closed the door and could not hear a thing. Even with the doors open, the sound of the hairdryer couldn't be heard from my lawn area. Out of respect for all my neighbouring properties, I'm happy to make sure all windows and doors are closed during extended business hours only, during the summer months. The salon is equipped with aircon, so will not be an issue. What I can't promise is peace and quiet from my 2- and 4-year-old that will be splashing in paddling pools and bouncing like maniacs on a bouncy castle. As you can see from the report, many local neighbours have stated positive and valid comments, so please take a moment to have a look. I feel a little disappointed that I respected my planning conditions extremely carefully, despite being accused of all sorts from my neighbours at 68 Ferry Road, who did not even educate themselves to any of the conditions, but still made inaccurate, false claims on numerous occasions against me. I am solely responsible for the comings and going of all clients at my salon. I believe that I've never had a genuine complaint. I feel like the planners at RDC need to understand the respect and appreciation I have for them, and that I would never do anything to jeopardise my current situation. I fully understand that my original planning permission was granted on the 2 conditions I am looking to vary.
You've got 1 minute left, sir.
Thank you. However, after 4 years of trading, respecting my local neighbourhood and providing with a service, I thought RDC can relax or adapt to these conditions in order to satisfy all parties involved, protect occupiers of neighbouring residential properties and private amenity areas so they can continue to be reasonably enjoyed. In conclusion, with all these factors in place, this planning application should comply to policy DM33 of RDC Local Development Framework Management Plan. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all members of the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Councillor Hoy as a member, and then Councillor Eaves, because you called it in.
Should Councillor Eaves go first as he called it
yeah,
in?
well, so on my one it says Councillor Hoy, but if you would like Councillor
I'm
Eaves,
happy for Councillor Eaves to go first as he called. For
make a
explanation,
decision, one of you.
no ward councillor was available at that point, and that's why Councillor Eaves called it in. I think he should go first.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Eaves.
Councillor Hoy, and thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was going to explain the reason being why it was myself who called it in rather than a ward councillor, and the call-in was done with the approval of the ward councillors. They just didn't have time to actually bring it in, so hopefully members will understand that. In conversation with the applicant, one of the things that was fairly obvious is that contrary to what we had on the previous application that we were considering, this guy has done everything he can to try and conform to everything that he's been told to do. So I think there is a little bit of weight that we need to actually take into consideration on that, and that if we do propose any further conditions that go on this, which I will get on to, that I have every expectation that this gentleman will conform. The reason for the application has been because the gentleman is very socially aware and is trying to help a particular person who has an interest in doing hairdressing and has some anxiety issues and all that sort of side of things. That aside, what we are looking at here is a young person who's looking to do training, and that would be in the form of an apprenticeship, as the applicant has explained. So what I would suggest that we consider is the fact that we put a condition on there that the allowance for this to be approved be limited to the duration of the apprenticeship, so as there is no chance then of this the business taking this particular application further to develop the business on further. I understand that there has been a conversation with the officers on this, and the officers are minded that this could be an acceptable condition for this particular application. Thank you, Chair. I'd perhaps like to leave it to Councillor Hoy to speak before I actually make a proposal. Thank you.
Your motion. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I must stop banging the mic. I support the application. I think the applicant has been a model in regards to adhering to his planning conditions. This is really a planning condition for an apprentice to help and assist. There will be no additional customers beyond the 2 hours that will allow him to do some more. The apprentice won't be doing the work of a hairdresser, they'll be doing the work of an apprentice, which will be tidying up, shadowing, and that's fully explained in the report. I understand why Councillor Eaves has suggested that condition. However, this application does mention this is only for an apprentice anyway, and so it can't expand beyond an apprentice. So I think, although it sounds quite good to add that condition in, I think with just looking at this now that we can, I would propose that we approve the application as made by the applicant.
Right, so you're put a motion forward?
Yeah.
Councillor Newport, are you seconding it? Could you put it to the... Thank you.
I'll second that, Chairman.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak to the motion as well, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I've just said thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Yeah, I would like to support this application and Councillor Hoy's motion. I see there's no reference in the report to economic development that I could see, and I would consider Holbridge a low growth area, and I think that promoting economic growth in Holbridge is important. I don't think we should omit that and what it can bring to the village and future opportunities. So I would like to support that. From listening to the applicant, I think that the issues he's raised in terms of noise, I get that, and maybe his neighbour with noise, but as he said, children playing in the garden, I don't really think there's going to be a lot of difference in the noise at all, with just working in a very, very small salon in the back garden. And I think, from what I hear, it seems like he's quite reasonable about keeping to his existing conditions. So I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Members, we have a motion on the table, seconded. I do apologise. I was looking at it and I didn't like that. So who is going to speak first? Councillor Constable? Don't argue again on this side, please.
I'd just like to speak to the motion in the sense that Officer Stranks, sorry, I can't see your name properly from there, brought up the fact that when someone starts as an apprentice, and I can speak from personal experience having leaving school at nearly 16 and serving a 3 or 4 years apprentice, that what tends to happen is over a period of time, you're trained to such a level where you are enabling the business to grow in the sense of you're then putting on tints, you're doing other jobs other than just passing up and washing hair. And personally, I'm all for cottage industry starting in garages at home. I think it's great for the economy, it's great for us locally, so I'm fully supportive of that. But I do feel that Councillor Eaves does have a very valid point that once an apprentice gets to a certain level, that you can then increase the footfall of your business. You can take on more clients, so this business will evolve. The point that Officer Stranks was making is that at some point, a decision will have to be made with that apprentice, whether they've reached a certain level and qualified, that they have to be dismissed, or you grow the business from within, which would create a larger footfall, or you seek premises without. Personally, I have no objection to which way it goes, but I do think it has to be considered that you cannot exclude the fact that taking on a person will not create more footfall in terms of clients to that business. So from that reason, I do think that Councillor Eaves' condition that once they've reached full training, that there needs to be some sort of condition that they either go on to another salon externally or the business is extended to a shop outside.
Thank you. Isn't that a condition already, Councillor Michael?
Yes.
Mike Franks? Yes. Sorry,
Yes.
can you answer that?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll take the opportunity to come in on one or two of the points stated.
you.
Yeah, we have to be careful. We're going back to the two tasks that are before us. One is to revisit condition 2, which is just personal to the applicant who you've heard tonight. Okay. Now, my approach, listening to the debate, would be you just need to adapt that condition, which we can do, to include the apprentice, yeah, or the trainee, however we describe it. There's two ways of doing that. There is naming them, and you could leave that with officers to incorporate the name into the consent, so that at such time as she outgrows the post then and moves on, that would be the end of that. But from a planning point of view, you're also agreeing the idea that the activity could accommodate an apprentice. So what I would be interested when you come to the vote is, are you saying just this specific person with her needs identified that have been expressed in the application, and that can go one way with the condition, or whether you're agreeing the capability of the use to accommodate an apprentice at any time, which is far more looser, so that as one person moved on, another one could pick up on the opportunities that you're debating. So I would like clarification when the moment comes as to exactly what you're agreeing. But also, if it's not out of turn, members, we've also got a condition before us about the late hours. Perhaps there's going to be a debate and a movement on that. But there's the two conditions, not just the one about the apprentice, if I made that clear.
So just to get it clear, and I will bring you in, Councillor Constable, for your motion, you're actually doing the apprenticeship, you're agreeing to, and the 2 late nights. I can hear you, but don't let them.
I'll wait for. Is it turned up yet? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And to be absolutely clear, my motion was for an apprentice. It wasn't a named apprentice. It could be any apprentice. And just for explanation, there is only one chair there. If they wanted to get more than one chair, that would have to go through planning again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's quite clear there will still only be one chair, so they're still restricted in what they can do.
So if they wanted to discharge the conditions they've got to come back to this committee. Thank you. Councillor Constable.
Yes, whilst I'm in favour of taking on apprenticeships, most apprenticeships have a term. In my day, it was 4 or 5 years. I think now it's between 2 and 3 years. Whilst I'm in favour of a business being able to train people, I am against the extra extended hours. Therefore, the motion as it is, I can't support unless the motion took out the extended hours.
Right, members, I'm going to, first of all, the motion we have is that we've got... Sorry, I didn't see you.
If I could just speak to the motion there, please, Chair. I think the applicant actually did cover the issue of the extra hours quite comprehensively, in that to say that there would be additional traffic noise and general movement in that particular area, in that particular road, I think it's a very, very difficult one to actually justify that as refusal, because it is a busy road and it is a bus route, and there is a lot of traffic that goes past those particular houses. So I'm a little bit mystified as to why the neighbour has actually put that in as an issue, because it doesn't seem to really add up. So for the applicant then to request additional hours which were originally refused on this basis, I do find that rather strange that we would hold to that. So I would support this motion as it stands.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The last person I'm going to speak on this is Councillor Williams, please, and then we will... Oh, sorry, Councillor Mrs Mason. Then that is it. Then we will go to the vote. Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I assume that should this applicant dispose of these premises, that permission would remain for somebody else that purchased that, or does it die with the sale of that premises?
Mike Stranks.
Chairman, thank you. No, the condition at the moment is for the applicant, yeah? So it stays with him. If he was to move on to another home, the consent would die, okay? So it's personal. What members are looking at is whether adapting that personal condition to take then an apprentice.
Right, thank you. Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask that we take the motion, if Councillor Hoy would agree, in the two parts, because I think they are quite distinct. One is the extended hours of 2 hours on 2 nights a week, which I can't really see, from everything I've heard, any concern about. I think it's utterly reasonable in that location. But the reason for having an apprentice is in the report, and it's because of the particular circumstances of that particular person. So I would like to see if the committee is so decided to agree to the apprentice part, I would like to see that person named in the officers, obviously not in public, and it'd be specific to that one person. Because otherwise I think we have a danger of the business escalating. I know it's not the intention, but having heard what other members said, I think that's a concern. So I would like, if Councillor Hoy's so minded, to put the request in two parts so that we can deal with them separately, because I would not like to vote the refusal when I agree with half of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Hoy, I don't actually agree with on my personal point that we need the person named, but Councillor Hoy, are you agreeable to have it in two parts, or do you want it as per whole? Is this your motion? And then
I would rather it went through as it is. I understand Councillor Mrs Mason's point. However, I think in this circumstance we've been told the reason why this person is being taken on and certain mental health issues. However we name them, the name could be out.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of that.
And we have to be mindful that this is being recorded by members of the public. Councillor Newport, you still want to second the motion and you're happy with it? Thank you very much. Members, the motion is that we approve this application. Can I have a show of hands for approval, please? Okay. Against members? 1. Abstention members? 1. Yeah. Abstentions members? 1. 2, sir? Who was the 2? Are you abstained, Councillor Gladstone? Yeah, right, thank you. I just didn't... Right. So that's carried, members. 9 for, 1 against, 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. Right, now we'll go on to... Right, I've got to get all my papers together because I've shuffled them around. We're going on to London Road, 7 London Road, but before that I'm going to read a statement. Before I continue with item 7, in brackets 4, members, I have seen a Facebook page originating from Jill Waite stating that she had heard Councillor Ian Ward, Portfolio for Strategic Planning and Assets, had been lobbying ward councillors for their support on this planning application. This is concerning and worrying allegation and may require further investigation. However, my primary issue this evening is to ensure that this committee's openness, transparency and regularity compliance. Can I please ask any member of this committee to declare now if they have been lobbied by Councillor Ward? No one's indicated. And the next statement was, if they have, then they are permitted to take part in the debate but not vote on this application. Thank you. So the application we're going to now is item 4 in brackets. It's the 7 London Hill, Rayleigh, 22/01003 full. And I don't think we've got any public... Yes, we have. Yeah. Who is going to do it? Mike, again. You're on the stage again. Thank you, Mike.
This application you can see on the screen outlined heavy there at the site of 7 London Hill, curves around at the top of Rayleigh High Street. Bellingham Lane, which we'll talk a lot about tonight, running alongside the Mill Hall, just out of shot. If we could see the conservation area map, please. The site is within the Rayleigh Conservation Area on the edge. It'll help if, forgive me, that's it. Let me see. Can you chance to rotate it, please, if that's possible? Thank you. That's okay. I'll orientate myself now. The site is there. See, there's a little star for those with a keen eye. But you'll see it's within the conservation area, which is a special set of circumstances where there's greater sensitivity towards planning controls. The Bellingham Lane that we were looking at, thank you, is curved in alignment, we understand, historically to do with running in parallel with former defences to the castle. So there's a historic alignment to Bellingham Lane. And if we can see the first of the photos we have, please. Hopefully they're there. Here we go. You'll see our building that concerns us tonight is this one here. And hopefully the next shot brings us closer. Thank you, that's great. Yep. So we're looking at the provision of solar panels on this roof edge. It's rear facing, which normally wouldn't give us a problem, but because of the exposure of this part of the elevation, it sort of dominates the Bellingham Lane area. You will see on this newer building here, there are 6 panels as part of the planning consent granted to that flatted building, but officers feel that they're not so injurious as this proposal because at time to time they're partly screened by surrounding development. They're not as prominent as we will see on the elevations if we can jump to those. First of all, I'm going to show you the building as it is. This is the lower image, the back elevation. You'll see it's a large hip-roofed expanse. That's as it is, or drawn as it is at the current time. If we could jump to the proposal, please. you'll see that the application is proposing 19 solar panels on this south-facing roof slope. Now, Rayleigh Conservation Area is a designated heritage asset. This is not a listed building. In actual fact, in the appraisal that you have for the conservation area, the building is of poor quality. But the issue is not so much the harm to the building, it's the harm to the area, the conservation area, the street scenes that we were just looking at and street views. That has a certain quality. And as a planning authority, we have a duty, a responsibility in the decisions that we take to preserve and enhance that conservation area. So at least keep it as it is. In this case, the building is particularly bad, and make it better. And in a nutshell, it's officers' view that actually we're taking a building that is already poor, and if we were to approve this proposal, we'd be making it look a lot worse with harm to the conservation area. Now, as part of the process of dealing with the application, officers and the council as a whole seek specialist view from the Essex County Council's Place Services. Members have seen their comments many times in reports. They offer us the expertise to help us make the difficult decisions, to give us that extra, is this right or is it wrong, put simply. And members will see that at page 7.49 of the officer report that their advice is that permission should be refused. Members would see that you have to balance the harm, because this is what they call less than substantial harm. It's still a harm to the conservation area. That can be balanced against any public benefit. Now, in this case, you'll see from the report that's before you that the solar panels are considered by both the officers and specialist advisors to be out of keeping, given their overly modern, shiny exterior and the sharp contrast to the surrounding historic context. Despite the building being poor quality in conservation terms, the provision would make the appearance of the building worse, as I've said earlier, already worsening of what is a negative building. Now, officers do not consider that the public benefits set out in the report outweigh this harm. The applicant states that the proposal represents the latter stages of a programme of work to make the building more thermally efficient. Already there have been improvements in insulation, air tightness and the replacement of old heaters. And if installed, the solar panels would be accompanied by battery storage so that when the club is closed, it could continue to store generated power. Officers' view is, however, that despite being slimline design and reversible, which means they can be taken off, given the life expectancy of these panels is usually several years before they need replacing, the duration that they would be present would be harmful to the conservation area. We're not talking of something like a caravan temporarily while somebody rebuilds their subsiding house or something that's there months. These would be there several years, whatever the life expectancy of these are. So that harm would be for the duration of that time. And given the limited scale of the panels proposed, we can't help but feel that this is of private benefit, not public benefit. There is a wider public benefit that if everybody, including this applicant, make the effort to generate renewable power, that is for the benefit of us all. But officers feel that concern doesn't outweigh the specific harm to the green belt that our specialist advisors and ourselves see before you. So there are public benefits. There's footfall to people coming to the club and keeping that open. There is the activity that those people might spend in the local shops and services, keeping that activity. But we haven't seen anything in the application particulars that demonstrate any viability or assuredness that you could rely on, I think, as members, to say that the harm of those panels is outweighed by those, such as they are, public benefits. So the recommendation, Chairman, is refusal for the reason that's set out in the report.
Thank you, Mike. We have one speaker, public speaker, and that is Mr. John Dagg. Oh, good evening. You're already up. You've got 5 minutes, and as you know, I'll let you know when there's 4 minutes gone.
Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, members. Your consideration should be first addressing the legal requirement to give special attention to the desirability of preserving or enhancing the character or appearance of the conservation area. Preservation means not causing harm. So if you think that this isn't causing harm, it's in accord with the legal duty. Secondly, you should have regard to the relevant policies of the development plan and other material considerations. And the NPPF is obviously a weighty consideration. Both it and the development plan must be read as a whole. And subject to the legal duty, the decision should be made in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. The approach of the officer report identifies two issues, as Mr. Stranks has just pointed out. The impact of the proposal on the character and appearance or significance, heritage value of the conservation area, and secondly, the weight to be given to the accepted in the report, public benefit of this renewable energy proposal. 7.94 megawatt hours per annum, a saving of 1.85 tonnes of CO2 emissions. However, not all relevant policies of the development plan have been mentioned in the report. Actually, not all relevant policies of the NPPF have been mentioned in the report, or by Place Services. And Place Services have put forward a rather brief consultation response. The applicant's heritage consultant considers that the impact of the proposal is not harmful. This follows from a structured assessment of the club building in its context, that's to say in its full setting, applying historic England guidance. If members think that that is right, there is no need to go on and balance impact against benefit. The effect on character and appearance of the area would be neutral. It would be preserved, and planning permission can be properly granted. Your development plan at CP2 provides for regard to be had to the Conservation Area Appraisal 2007. Mr. Stranks referred to that, but not very fully. This should be considered when you're considering proposals. It's referred to in the report. The club building is categorised as having a negative effect on character, but also the view northeast along Bellingham Lane is also classed as negative. Conservation areas do vary in their character across their areas. The nature of the club building is recognised by Place Services as negative in the report, but nevertheless it's asserted that harm will result from the installation. Reference is made to the incongruous, that's to say out-of-place panels, which would appear overly modern and of a shiny material, in sharp contrast to the historic context. Consider the photograph at 748 of your report. It's the only photograph in the report, and it was put up on the screen. That's looking northeast. You're very familiar with it. It's just outside this hall. This is the backland area of the High Street. This particular area of the conservation area really has no heritage value. No proper assessment is made by Place Services or in the report of number 22 to 24, with its expansive glass, shiny front, modernist form, and ground floor car parking. The solar panels on its roof are mentioned. You may feel that they can be seen, but they're not prominent due to their slim profile and colour. In this context, it's difficult to see how harm could arise from this proposal. The panels will be visible, but will they really be out of place? They will match the club roof cladding in colour, and they'll be of slim profile, which was, of course, accepted by Mr. Stranks. Even if harm does arise, it is at the lowest level, less than substantial harm, as assessed by Place Services and as accepted in the report. Any low-level harm is surely outweighed by the public benefit.
Couple of minutes, sir.
See the NPPF at 202, paragraph 202. Where a development proposal will lead to less than substantial harm to the significance, i.e. heritage value of conservation area, this harm should be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. Note the support for renewable energy in your own development plan at ENV 7. And then note the NPPF at 158 under the chapter title, Meeting the Challenge of Climate Change. And it says, authorities should recognise that even small-scale projects provide a valuable contribution to cutting greenhouse gas emissions and approve the application if its impacts are acceptable. I say these impacts are acceptable, and members, for these reasons, I suggest it would be entirely reasonable for the committee to grant planning permission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dagg. Any visiting members would like to speak on this? No indication. I have Councillor Foster would like to speak on this, and Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. RDC's website states, not all solar panels in the conservation area require planning permission. If the solar panels do not front a highway, planning permission would not be required. The west wall of the building fronts Bellingham Lane, the north wall fronts London Hills / Church Street. The south wall does not front a highway, so I don't believe that the proposal for these south-facing solar panels even needs planning permission. However, since we are here, some context. The RDC website talks about business support with a strong message about backing business. And in the recent budget meeting, the financial paper stated town centres are dying and need all the help they can get. Now to the site proposal. In the report before us this evening, in paragraph 1, it states it's within close proximity of a Grade 2 listed building, the windmill. Correct, as the crow flies, of course. However, Katie, could I have picture 1, please? This shows the view of the west wall of the club facing Bellingham Lane, taken from a gap between 2 houses opposite the club. This is the only place from which the club might be visible from the direction of the mill, but it's not actually visible from the ground level at the mill. Even if it were, the proposed panels would not be visible facing south. Could you have picture 2, please, Katie? This picture is from the rear path of Holy Trinity Church, looking across to the north elevation of the club. Therefore, no panels on the south-facing roof would be visible. Picture 3, please, Katie. This picture is from the front door of the Rayleigh Church on London Hill, mentioned in the report. The Conservative Club is not even visible. The club is also not visible from Rayleigh Mount. In paragraph 3, the statement that the solar panels would front the highway is incorrect. They will be at right angles to the highway, as we have seen from that first picture. I admit the highway does curve later on. Moving on to the impact on the conservation area and public benefits. Paragraph 23 states it's acknowledged that the existing building is a negative contributor. That's an opinion of Essex Place Services, and I don't think it's been tested. Paragraph 21 states Bellingham Lane follows the line of the former Bailey Ditch, Outer Bailey Ditch. The application does not affect the line of Bellingham Lane, so why is it material? Therefore, that comment isn't relevant. Katie, could we have picture 4, please? I'd like to give members a moment to look at that picture. Paragraph 22 describes the application as an incongruous feature of the street scene. In paragraph 33, it's dismissive as being harmful to the street scene of Bellingham Lane and being in a prominent position and setting a precedent. The precedent has already been set at 22 to 24 Bellingham Lane, where there are already solar panels with the same south-facing aspect as the proposed panels. You can't really see them very well in this picture, but if you take the picture from further up Bellingham Lane, as you saw earlier, the solar panels on 22 to 24 are visible. Look more carefully at the street scene. There's a steel chimney or vent somewhere up there, right in the middle. Perhaps I should point to them. Just bear with me a second while I test my technology. Up there. Thank you. Whoever did that, was that? Thank you. Right.
Turn yours off, Councillor Foster. Can you turn yours off, please?
Right.
Okay.
So there's a stainless steel chimney or vent. There's air conditioning units at various points all along there. Some you can face, you can see. Could you point to them for me? There and further down to the right, just to the right of that white lump of a building. That wonderful picture of the street scene, and further up as well. There's also the rear of the Rayleigh Cars industrial unit. There's a plethora of rubbish skips along the road there. There's a business van parked every day there. How on earth can putting solar panels on the top of the Conservatory Club, could you point to the Conservatory Club from there, please, Katie? that little blob in the distance. So how on earth
You've got
can
1 minute to go, Councillor
putting
Foster.
panels on this roof be judged to be harmful to the street scene? In paragraph 33, the report effectively dismisses the application, saying the applicant has not presented within the application a benefit to the public at large as required by the MPPF and MPPG, but rather a limited reduction in CO2 and a clear private benefit in the reduction of energy costs. Yet in paragraph 26, quoting NPPG, it states, however, benefits do not always have to be visible or accessible to the public in order to be genuine public benefits. Worryingly, given the RDC commitment to business in paragraph 31, it states the applicant fails to evidence that the business would cease if it fails to get approval. I'm unaware that an application for this, what I would call a climate-friendly change, requires avoidance of failure of business as a precondition of planning approval. In paragraph 37, it dismissively describes a relatively small contribution towards mitigating the effects of climate change. Yet in paragraph 41, it reports a proposal to place the panels on the western end of the roof, which would significantly reduce the power generated. So if I may, in conclusion.
Can you wind up, Councillor Foster?
Yes, I will. The conclusion. The proposed refusal of this application is based on very weak arguments, overstated negative impact on the conservation area, incorrect information against an environmentally friendly proposal, anti-business, and I said at the start, according to RDC website, not all solar panels in the conservation area require planning permission.
Right, Councillor Foster, we've got to stop.
Given all this, I therefore
Councillor
move
Foster.
for approval of the application.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor
I
Foster.
move for approval of the application.
Yeah, we've got people wanting to speak, and after you, it was Councillor Mrs. Mason, and then we've got Councillor Hoy, Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Chair. I shall try and keep within the time limits. I think everyone knows, on this committee at least, that I like solar panels. Indeed, I put a motion to Council recently asking for these to be recommended on all new buildings. So I was intrigued, however, when I saw this application and I saw the reason for the call-in was on the grounds of public interest. I've been on the council for 12 years. I've had countless training sessions, most of them quite excellent. I've had questions and answer sessions with officers on applications. I've sat through 2 public inquiries, and we've been told time and time again that we must judge any planning application on material planning concerns. And yet I've never heard of in the public interest being a material planning concern. So either I've missed it or it wasn't and it is. And that's usually our reason for calling something in, a material planning concern. So I'd like the officers later on to clarify if in the public interest is a material planning concern, and if so, I'd like it added to the reasons for refusal, because I support refusal. The harm to the conservation area is debatable. The aesthetics of a street scene are debatable. What isn't debatable is the sight of solar panels. I have them on my own house, and I regret it because although they are very good and very efficient, I don't like the look of them. They are imposing, and unfortunately, they spoil the look of the house, which is one of those things. So the harm to the conservation area, I think, would be greater, and I don't think there would be any public benefit, unfortunately, from this. So I will be moving or supporting the officer's recommendation, which I think has been very well thought out, for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Mason. Councillor Hoy. Sorry, I should speak to the mic. Councillor Hoy.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm really just saying that I'm going to be supporting refusal on this. The officers have done a very good job with the report. I would just like to point out to members that on page 7.4.9, the Essex County Council Place Services, Historic Buildings and Conservation Advice. I'll just pick out a few paragraphs from there which back up what the officers have said. For instance, introducing an incongruous feature which would fail to preserve the character or appearance of Rayleigh Conservation Area. They've said, due to the location of the proposed solar panels, these shall feature prominently. So they're saying they're going to be prominent. The cumulative impact of further negative additions to the conservation area should be avoided. So despite the fact there might be some now, i.e. air conditioning vents, we shouldn't make it worse. In the second paragraph, the club had a get-out. It says, I note there is a flat-roofed extension to the rear. Would it be possible to place low-profile solar panels in this location? This would potentially have little to no impact, as the panels would not be visible. So I think they've been quite helpful there. They're trying to help the Conservative Club put panels in an appropriate place which would not be detrimental to the conservation area. I'd also add, I'm aware you can go up Holy Trinity Tower. I'm aware you can go up the Mill, and I think those panels would be prominent from both places, if not on the ground. So that's just my reasons for supporting refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself a little bit more than just a bit concerned here, because this decision is going to be seen as being political. It's not going to be seen as being something that is taken on merit, because unfortunately, being the Conservative Club, it is in everyone who is a Conservative member to vote in favour of this, and I'm sure that that's the way it will go when it comes to the vote. I have that distinct feeling. Mr Dagg, in his speech to the committee, and I quote him, he said that the building has no heritage value. I think he's completely missed the point. If we go walk around in the conservation area, the conservation area has plenty of ugly buildings, but it is a conservation area, and that is the whole point of it. Now, you can actually see clearly that roof from the road, despite what others have actually said in the position it is. I do see that the officers have tried to be helpful and suggested alternative placement, so that's fine. But I'm surprised that there hasn't been any consideration of that. The thing that I think is most concerning here is the reputational risk that this decision will give to the council. Because what the public will see will be that if this is approved, it is the Conservative administration who are not liking what the officers are doing and therefore turning it over for their own advantage. Now, whether that's right or not, I don't know. That's not for me to judge, but that is how the public are going to view it. And so I do find this rather more concerning than just the application. And I will be voting in favour of refusal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rees. Councillor Newport.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, how do you follow on from the other members? Basically, the officer has put forward the case, and not just our own officers, but Essex have put forward the case for refusal, and I cannot find anywhere in that I could personally argue with. When we look at Rayleigh and the conservation area, I've seen many, many photos of aerial shots of the conservation area, and when I look at them, do I see solar panels? No, I don't. And we must protect our conservation area, whether that's from the ground or from above. This is basically this would set a precedent, and we will not be able to roll back from that. Once we say yes to one application, that will just snowball. We will not be sat here debating whether we're going to allow more solar panels, because we know the argument that will come before us. The inspector will overrule, because this, if approved tonight, will set that precedence, and I don't see, the only public interest here is to refuse this application solar panels are not appropriate in the conservation area. Thank you, Chairman.
Before I put it to the vote, members, I just will point out on 7.4. Right, well, I'll do mine first, please. 7.4.8, there is a picture that 22-24 has already got solar panels, so that has been, precedent has been stated already, okay? So we can't, because any other application wants them, we already have them in that. No, that's what I'm going to say. No, you, sorry, Mr. Councillor Newport, you said we would set a precedent if any solar panels were put on a building, which we've got, as per the thing. Councillor Gadsden.
My question is, as discussed, we have solar panels on a building, and I accept it is a new building. So, as there is a precedent, so are we saying that if the Conservative Club was demolished and rebuilt, that it would be acceptable to put solar panels on it? And also with regards to the flat roof, that would not provide sufficient energy to heat the club. And regarding sort of political football that's going on, we all declared a non-pecuniary interest. I'd also like to state quite clearly, because members of the public here, we do not, as Conservative members, benefit financially at all from the Conservative Club. Actually, it costs us money to belong. So when we're looking at benefits, there is no benefit to us. I think you're also missing the point that we are here to support businesses. It is a business, and with over 500 members who are not, in generally large amount, not politically active, do use this club. They do find emotional support by being a member of this club, by meeting and being able to leave home, which a lot of them are elderly. So there is the benefit to the greater public by having a club, as is any local establishment. When you mention other commercial outlets in the area, this is a significant benefit in terms of that. And the extortionate energy bills that people are facing in business, and this is a business, do need the support of the council to enable them to keep going to benefit the area. So I feel that I do understand it's a conservation area. I do understand that not all conservation areas are pretty, but I do feel the fact that you've already permitted it on a new building, bright, shiny new building. There's a shiny metal chimney thing up there as well. I personally do not think that the street scene is directly affected by these panels, and I just fail to understand why we've had a guest speaker. I don't know who the guest speaker is, but he has put counter proposals to what's been said by officers, and I actually think that maybe we need time out to look at the additional information provided by whoever that gentleman is over there, so that we can have a full understanding, because when information's brought to a meeting like this and we haven't had time to research it, I'm not quite understand how a decision is made when abstracts of reports are taken here, there and everywhere. And I'd really like to see either this deferred so that we can go into it further, and maybe come to a greater understanding. But at the moment, I feel that it's only fair to support the application to have these panels put on top.
Thank you very much. Right, members, we've got a motion on the table for refusal. Wait a minute, I've just had... with you, Sonia? Yeah, we have. Yeah, we've got to speak to them for refusal.
Can I raise a point of order? Is the mic on? Right.
No.
I was advised that the time spent putting up photographs and allowing members to absorb the photographs would not count towards the 5 minutes. I believe that I didn't get my 5 minute speaking time, and my motion to approval was within the 5 minutes.
No, sorry, Councillor Foster, you're completely wrong there. As soon as you put the photographs up, Sonia stopped the stop clock. So she did stop. So the photo, as I it was agreed that, as we do always, as I did with Councillor McPherson, we stopped the stop clock. You had the photographs, members could see them, and then when you went to speak again, we started the stop clock. You actually went to 5 minutes, 34 seconds. So we did actually...
Thank you, Chairman.
So we did actually do it fairly, as we did for Councillor McPherson. Okay, just that's for clarity. Members, we've got a motion on... Councillor Mr Mason.
So I thought Councillor Gaston put in a motion for deferral.
No, we've still got a motion for refusal.
I think...
Sorry.
Then she said... No. Then she said she would approve it. Right, okay. We've got...
That's clarity.
Right, okay. We've got... A recommendation is for refusal. Members, can I have a show of hands that are for refusal? Yeah, of course. Well, I could do, but I won't tonight. So you're not unless it's protocol. We don't need our members to stand for a recorded vote. Not a development. I just want to clarify in case anyone says. Right. Yeah, I know. Right. Can you put up your hands for refusal, please? Yeah, recorded. But we want to know who's going to refuse it, and then we can put it as a recorded vote. Right, so...
Give me a moment.
No, we're having a moment. Sonia is having a moment to mark up things.
Seems like we're in a position to that political position going to refuse.
Yeah, no.
Can I have a microphone, please?
Oh, you got one. Sorry, I do apologise.
Thank you. Councillor Constable.
Yeah, recorded vote.
Against refusal. Councillor Cripps. 4. Councillor FD. Councillor Eves. Councillor Foster. Councillor Mrs Gadsden. Councillor Hoy. Councillor Mrs Mason. Councillor Milne. Councillor Mrs Shaw. Councillor Newport, sorry. Councillor Williams. So you've got 5 for, 6 against, and 1 abstention. Okay, so that's not carried.
So we've got 4, 5 against, 1 abstention.
So 5 for, 6 against.
So it's 5 for, 6 against, 1 abstention. So that has been lost. So it is. Do we have to do another?
Case, can I move for deferment? Thank you.
No, you can't. We voted on. Sorry.
Yeah, we've lost. Yeah, we've lost the vote for
No,
refusal.
the recommendation I put forward was for refusal. That's
Yes,
what
I
we've
know.
done. And we voted against it. And you've lost. It's like any application. We've lost. It was the recommendation by officers was for refusal. We voted against it. Members have gone against the recommendation of the officers, and we've voted for. So the recommendation from the officers has been lost. We now go on to the next one. No, it's gone. We've lost it. We've done it. Finished. And now going to have a 5-minute break because I've just been asked for one.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 15:15. I'm going by that clock over there. It's 15:15, even though it doesn't say 20 past by this clock in the room. Can we please come back?
against officer recommendation, you've got to give them an opportunity to actually discuss conditions, because you cannot just grant planning permission without any conditions, Daniel.
Okay.
Yeah? You can't, I'm afraid.
So I'm just trying to remember where we do.
And also...
Maybe it might be planning might be different because normally if it's other council meetings, if you lose, because we was voting for the officer's recommendation and the officer's recommendation was lost. That
Planning,
normally-
planning, you cannot just
Planning
grant
is different.
you cannot just grant planning permission without the opportunity for officers to suggest appropriate conditions. It would be challengeable. That planning permission would be challengeable.
No problem.
And also because that motion.
Can you set the mic up, please? Members, can we sit down, please? Right, members, I've just been advised I took the decision too soon, so I do apologise. So now we've voted that we will not refuse this. So have we another motion on the table? Yes, you did. What was your... Can I have your motion again, please, Mrs Mason?
Yes, certainly. I'm moving for deferment.
On the grounds of?
On the grounds of the fact that we need more information, the public perception and the information that the Speaker gave us, which I think Councillor Gladstone did point out that it would be helpful to have that in the report expanded to cover that. But I'm moving for deferment, and I also think it would be good for this council to defer it so that reputation-wise.
Have you a seconder, please? Councillor Newport. Thank you. Members, can I have a vote on this motion for deferral, please? For
Those in favour.
in favour of a deferral of this application. Members against deferment, can we please have a vote? Anyone abstain?
It's casting vote.
Have I got a decision? So we have 4 for deferral, 5 against deferral, Sorry, five. So 5 for deferral, 5 against deferral, 2 abstentions, and I have the casting vote, and I'm voting against deferral. There's no need to be sarcastic. Right, we now have a motion on the table for approval of this application. Have your seconder, please. Right.
Can you give officers the opportunity to come in, please? Because
Our officers would like to come in, and is that who would like to come in? Councillor?
Thanks, Chairman. Sorry. We have had some conditions ahead. If councillors would mind just having a look to see whether they would consider these acceptable.
Okay.
So they're just on the screen. The first one is the standard one to do with time, so to take place within 3 years of the date of the permission. The second one is also mostly the standard one listing the plans, but also to do with. Sorry, I had put in about the spec of it, but it seems to have disappeared from the wording. But so it should read, the development hereby permitted should be carried out in complete accordance with the specification as listed in the application and the following approved plans. I can just type that in if it helps.
Okay. So members, with these additional conditions, we now have a motion on the table to approve this application, and we have a. They're up there. Yes. You would like another recorder? That's not a problem. Just get Sonia to sort the paperwork out. Do we? Sonia, do we have to accept the conditions first? No, do we have to vote on the conditions? No, right.
it's approval subject to
Conditions, as I said. Right, okay, thank you. Oh yeah, of course you can. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Constable. You're voting for approval of the application subject to the conditions as outlined by the officer. Thank you. Councillor Cripps. Councillor Refty. Councillor Eaves. Councillor Foster. Councillor Gadsden. Councillor Hoy. Councillor Mrs Mason. Councillor Mrs Mason. Councillor Milne. Councillor Newport. Councillor Mrs Shaw. Councillor Williams.
Right, members. There's 6 for, 5 against, and 1 abstention. So this has now been carried, and the refusal has been approved. Thank you.
No.
Approved.
The application has been approved.
Approved. That's what I said.
No, you said refusal.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. You could, yeah. And I've done something to the mic. Oh, that's it. I do. Sorry.
The meeting. I'm not feeling great.
Are you all right?
Yeah,
Do you want us
fine.
to stop?
I just
Do you want
need
us to stop the meeting so you
No.
get help?
I'll just go. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Wish you well. Right, members. We now will go back to agenda item 7/2, 22/01168, full site of 22 and 24 Southend Road, Hockley. Katie Fowler, I'm getting tired, will present the officer's report. I do apologise.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I'm just checking I've got all the plans in order.
Can you hear me? Can I just declare a non-pecuniary interest as a ward councillor?
Thank you very much. That's not necessary. Yeah, but thank you. Yes, Casey.
Thank you, Chairman. So the application site is outlined in red and can be seen here on the aerial photograph on the screen. So hopefully that's clear. The site is located to the east of Spa Road roundabout, which can be seen on the left-hand side of the screen, and is on the corner of Great Eastern Road, which runs northwards here. There are some notable buildings along Southend Road, such as the library, which is located here, and the fire station building, just located north of that. The site fronts Southend Road and also Great Eastern Road, and given its corner plot location, it is a prominent site within the street scenes of Southend Road and Great Eastern Road. Planning permission is sought for the demolition of the existing bungalows on site and the construction of 3 terraced dwellings. The dwellings would have pitched roofs with 2-storey bay window features to the front elevation. The rear elevations would be finished with single-storey ground floor projections and a gable end dormer-like feature to the roof space. Just zoom this one out so we can see. All 3 dwellings would face onto Southend Road. An area of substantial landscaping has been included along the western flank boundary and to the frontage of Plot C. Hopefully that should be visible just along here. And then Plot C is this plot. Plot A and C would utilise existing vehicular accesses off of Southend Road and Great Eastern Road, and the vehicular access to Plot B would be the only formation of a new access. The proposed development has been amended following refusal of a previous scheme for 3 dwellings. So the plans on the top show the previous scheme which was refused and the block plan just in this corner, and the bottom is what's proposed now and the block plan for that. The issues raised related to the urban green, building line and design and the compact and cluttered development that would result. The proposal has been amended by creating a terrace of 3 dwellings that is set back from the building line of Great Eastern Road and follows the plot widths which are characteristic of this area. The design has also been simplified so that the detailing complements rather than clutters the elevations. Additional soft landscaping has been introduced along the western flank in light of the amendment to create a row of terraces. Overall, officers have considered the proposal to overcome the previous grant of refusal. Members may be familiar with the application site, as there have been a number of applications which have come before them previously. In particular are the 2 flatted schemes which can be seen on the screen. Both applications were refused and dismissed by the planning inspector at appeal. The left-hand scheme was initially dismissed due to its dominant appearance and sense of overdevelopment and lack of adequate parking. The inspector particularly made note of the scale of the building in terms of the length of the elevations and its height. Following the dismissal, the right-hand scheme was submitted and refused. The inspectorate proceeded to dismiss the appeal due to harm to the character of the area, inadequate parking provision, insufficient space standards, and a lack of mechanism to secure the RAMS payment. The inspector noted within their decision that they considered the reduced height acceptable, but that the elevations were still of significant length and at odds with the scale and proportions of the buildings within the street scene. Here we can see the comparisons between the appeal schemes and the proposed development. So the top scheme is the first refused application, the middle is the second, and then the bottom one is what is proposed now. Whilst the development can be considered comparatively in terms of its architectural scale style and height to the first appeal, it was not the height alone that the appeal was dismissed for, but rather combined with the scale of this development. This slide shows a comparison of the side elevations. It is evident the extent of elevation which has been reduced, the top drawing being the first appeal and the bottom one being what's proposed now. The inspector's decision focused on the cumulative impact of the height and length of elevations which resulted in the overdevelopment. The proposed development, although a similar height to the appeal schemes, would have a significantly less depth. And if I just show the plot plans here as well, you can see that the extent of built form has been reduced. And just for further clarification, there is a dotted line which goes up here. And so although from here it looks as though the development only went some way along Great Eastern Road, it actually extended back to here, and this was a first and second floor element. So still projected quite deeply into that plot. Although the height of the proposed dwellings would be marginally greater than those of the terraced dwellings adjacent, they have been considered to be in keeping with the character and appearance of the area. Looking at the street scene of Southend Road, we can see that it is incredibly mixed. There is no set building typology or ridgeline. Instead, each dwelling varies greatly plot to plot. The photo on the screen shows a dramatic change in ridgeline between two-storey dwellings and a bungalow in the background, and even the two-storey dwellings in the foreground. So we have here a bungalow, and then next to it we have two-storey dwellings, but then again two-storey dwelling which is greater in height, and then the same between this bungalow, this two-storey dwelling, and then the two-storey dwelling here compared to the terraced property here, and the detached two-storey here. And this is even evident between the existing application site and the terrace property next door, where there is a dramatic change in ridge height. It's also seen to the east of the application site where, if you're travelling towards Hawkwell. Whilst the development would certainly take on a modern appearance, it is not considered that this would be out of keeping with the character of Hockley. Along Southend Road and up to Spa Road roundabout, a variation of architectural styles can be seen, ranging from the locally listed Spa Pub building to Spa Place in the background. And so you can see Spa Pub here, and then just in the background, although not very clear, is Spa Place. On the southern side of Southend Road are flatter schemes built to the Neo-Georgian architectural style, but adjacent to some examples of modernist architecture, and that can be seen on the left-hand side of the screen here. The variation of architectural styles is therefore evident along Southend Road. Even along Great Eastern Road, the materials used and the finish of properties varies and creates a different appearance between the dwellings. Given the greatly differing building typology and architectural styles of Southend Road, there is not considered to be a character in this area in this sense that the development must follow. There is character of the local area in terms of plot widths, building lines and urban grain, which can be considered as size and configuration of plots. However, the revised proposal has been considered in keeping with each of these characteristics. In addition, the proposal would not be considered to have an impact upon adjoining residents that would be unreasonable for the built-up context of the application site. Although it was mentioned within the officer report that the trees along the northern boundary, so they can just be seen to the top of the screen here, should be retained. And we have received a comment from a neighbour requesting that the trees are no longer required to be retained. The addendum has spoken to this and amended the landscape condition so as to not require the trees to be retained. The proposal would utilise 2 existing access points and proposes the creation of a third from Southend Road. The Highway Authority have not objected to this vehicular access. Each dwelling would be capable of accommodating 2 off-street car parking spaces measuring to the APOA parking standards. The proposed development would also be compliant with the Council's requirement of garden sizes, refuse storage, space standards and habitat mitigation. The application is recommended for approval, Chairman, subject to the conditions set out in the report and the amendment to Condition 4 as outlined in the addendum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. We have one public speaker, the applicant, and it's Mr. Bashar Ali. Thank you very much. You've seen it, how it's gone all evening. It's 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you've done 4.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I proceed? Yeah. So first of all, we're locally based anyway. We're sort of independent contractors, and
We have families of our own, and we understand the difficulties families have in finding accommodation and having family housing with sufficient space. And so we've taken on board a lot of the comments that have been made, and we've looked at the history of the refusals in terms of the flats that were originally designed and put forward. They've all been refused, and we've taken that on board. And we've worked very closely with the planners to try and come up with a scheme that is very sensitive to all the objections that have been made. And we've come up with a scheme, I believe, that is taken on board all those objections, particularly coming up with a traditional design. And we've worked carefully and extensively with the planners throughout in resulting in this scheme. The traditional scale houses are similar to many others in the area, and exactly as number 20 on the opposite side of the junction. And I think one of the key concerns was the fact that we were going, or referred to, a third floor, but that is no different to an individual having a loft conversion. So we don't see what problem that actually causes. And with the architects, we've confirmed that obviously there is no difference in terms of the viewpoint from the second floor to the third floor. There is no difference. So having that third floor is no different to someone having a loft conversion. So I don't quite understand why there's such an objection to that. We've also made sure that there's well-proportioned fenestrations that respect the traditional orientation of the houses on Southend Roads. The houses also respect the distances to the boundaries of neighbouring properties, exactly as number 20 on the opposite side of the junction. Furthermore, the houses are positioned 4 metres further from the rear building than the existing bungalows, thus increasing the garden depth and separation from number one Great Eastern Road. We've also included large landscape areas to the front, the side, and the rear. We've reused the existing vehicle access and egress to the main road, and the houses respect and follow the building line of both roads. So our request is that the committee members respect the recommendation of the planning experts and grant permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. We've got no visiting members of the council here now. So it'll be Councillor Eaves.
Order, Madam Chairman. As I've got an indirect pecuniary interest, I should speak and leave.
All right, sorry, thank you.
I was going to leave before I spoke.
What order would you like to do it? Leave and then speak?
I'd love to leave.
Yeah,
yes.
all right.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. This application, it has a couple of demerits in my view. That I don't like the third floor. I know that there is a tendency to that. However, it is a vast improvement on the planning applications we've seen on this site. And the importance of this site is that as you come over the hill, Hawkwell Hill, from the White Hart, you see this building before you see anything else. It is the entrance to Hockley, so it is very dominant. My only concern with this, and it's not a real concern, I do think it's a vast improvement, is I've seen the planting scheme looks lovely on paper, and I know the officers have put a condition in, and I know that they want it done in the first planting season, but I would like to see that really rigidly adhered to, and I would like to see it very soft and quite tall because of the prominence of the location. But that's all I've got to say on this, and I will depart. Thank you.
Would you like the officer to come back on that, Councillor Mrs. Mason, before you leave?
No, I'm quite happy that it's in the report. I just wanted to reinforce the importance of that. Normally I wouldn't because the planting scheme is done, but because of the location, it is more important than it would ordinarily be. So, and I hope that if the developer is here, hopefully he's aware of it, and we'll have it in nice and early.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
we'll call you. You are coming back for the last application.
Unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. You can go home if you would like to. Councillor Eaves. You're more than welcome to come back. We'll give you a call.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Mason that this is a big improvement on what we've seen before. However, I do have a number of concerns with this particular application. The applicant has said about the third floor. being regarded more as a loft conversion. When the first application was made, the appeal was held because of the third floor. When the second application came in, that wasn't actually considered part of it. But if you look at the application that came in on the second time round, the bonnets were tiny and the overlooking was not there. Now, what we have on this application is some very large picture windows in the back. So far from being equivalent to a loft conversion, this is a genuine third floor. Also, the ridge height is higher than adjacent buildings. Now, to claim that the area would actually be mirroring other buildings in the area that got 3 floors, we've been through this before. This particular plot is not regarded, and that was held up on appeal, is not regarded as being the centre of Hockley, where there are multiple storey dwellings. So that cannot be held as a reason for that. I do have concerns over the parking for the plot that's on the corner. The 2 spots that are at the back there, I note in the report that they said that they were rather small, but they also come out right adjacent to a bus stop. And to say that that is a safe exit there when it's right next to a bus stop, I think is somewhat of a mistake. The overlooking to the gardens in the Great Eastern Road is considerable, and it is very, very obvious. If the committee are minded to actually agree this item, then I would suggest that the windows that are out the back are given a condition of having limiters on their opening and having frosted windows in them, frosted glass in them. Bin storage, I'd be very interested to see where the officers reckon that bin storage would actually be, in particular for the house that's actually in the middle of the terrace, because I don't see anything for that. I understand that with the other ones they could take them round the back, but I'm not sure where I'm seeing it for the middle one. If you look at the aspect of Great Eastern Road and the impact that this actually has going from a bungalow to a 3-storey building, the impact on the street scene in Great Eastern Road is quite significant, and I think that should have been taken into consideration. I will be voting against approval on this. Thank you, Chair.
Would you like to come back?
Just on the bin storage, sorry, I think it's my fault for having the plans as they were. I believe this strip of hard standing at the top of the car parking would serve the bins for this central property so that they would be able to drag them out to the street there.
Councillor Gadsden, being a ward councillor.
Yeah, I'd actually like to support most of what Councillor Eaves says. And I'm particularly concerned that 5-bedroom properties, the amount of parking or car ownership would seldom be 2 cars. Those roads do not lend themselves to off-street parking. And at the moment, I really do not feel I can support this application in its present form.
Councillor FD.
Thank you, Chair. It's a difficult one. I don't know if support or not support this one, but I do have a problem with the ridge line and the chimneys. Why are ridge lines now to the top of the chimneys next door? It frustrates me that, because it's not in line with the ridge, it's in line with the chimney. But I listen to the rest of the arguments. That's my main problem with this.
Sorry, is there any other members that would like to speak on this, please? Councillor Constable.
Yes, I don't have a problem with the development. I do have a problem with the height of the development being a 3-storey. If it was a two-storey development, I would be more in favour of it, but it's not, it's too big, and it's out of character with the area. And with 5 bedrooms, if they've got 3 or 4 children, the car parking at a later date is going to become a nightmare, and that is part of a bus route on both roads. So in its present condition, I can't support it either.
Have we got a motion on the table, or are we going for the motion for recommendation?
I would like to propose that we refuse the application on the grounds that it is over height, and this only on the 3rd storey, and the lack of parking for 5 property building.
Have you a seconder, please? Oh, we've got 2 here. Councillor Reeves or Councillor Gladstone. Right, members, we've got a motion on the table for refusal of this application. Sorry, officers would like to come back. Sorry, I do apologise.
Sorry, thank you, Chairman. I would just have concern regarding the refusal for parking, just because for 5-bedroom properties, we are required to have 2 off-street parking standards of parking spaces by our standards that we have adopted. So pushing for any more is not in our policy, and we don't have that backing. And I do appreciate that we have had appeals on this site previously relating to parking, but with this scheme we have got adequate parking which meet those standards. They're not the minimum dimensions, they are the preferred bay sizes. So I would just be concerned to defend that point where it is compliant with our policy in that regard.
Councillor Constable, will you take that one off and have the rest for your refusal?
I'm happy to go along with the officer's recommendation on parking.
Councillor Gadsden, are you happy still to?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. Who's got a hand? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I did prepare a reason for refusal. I think probably based on the discussion, I'll just amend it slightly to what it was, but it will read something along the lines of the proposed development by virtue of its height. I will take out scale and density as the discussion hasn't surrounded that. So like that. Would result in overdevelopment of the application site to the detriment of the character and appearance of the area. The proposal would be contrary to policy DM1 and DM3 of the Development Management Plan and the MPPF.
Councillor Reeves.
Could I propose that we include in there, after the proposed development by virtue of its height, and inclusion of the 3rd floor?
Are you all right with that, Katie? Oh, good grief. You don't need shorthand, do you? Right, members, we've got a motion on the table for refusal of this application, and it's been seconded. Can I have a show of hands for refusal? Right. Can I have a vote for this application? Against refusal. 2. Any abstentions, members? 2. This, members, is refused. There was 6 for refusal, 2 against refusal, and 2 abstentions. Now, members, it's coming up to, so that has been refused, members. It's coming up to 10 to 10. We've got one more application to go forward. Can I have a show of hands if you want to carry on with this committee meeting to get this application done, or we close the meeting now? Can I have a show of hands for carrying on for, I'm going to say about half an hour, till 10:15. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, we've got to get Christine back. So have a think. I don't want to do it.
We just need to get on.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Mrs Mason, Councillor Mrs Mason. Right, I've just put onto the... I said, welcome back. It's just, I've just put forward that we've got one more application, and before this microphone completely collapses on me, we need to vote that we will hear this application, or do we defer this application to the next meeting? So can I have a show of hands to carry on this meeting, please? For carrying it on.
Yes, for this one application.
It's one application. Two. Anyone, like, can I have against? We're going to, yeah. Sorry. So we're going to do the last application on the...
No, we're not.
We're not.
No, well, I was going to say we're going to do... Let me finish. I was going to do the last application will be on the next meeting. Yeah, that's what, if people would let me finish what I was going to say. Thank you, That's all right. Thank you, members. I will close this meeting at past. Councillor Mason, you needn't have come back. You could have gone home. You never know. No, that's true. We're not. It's so tough.